I am tired of billionaires not having real consequences. I am really fed up with it at this point.
I mean, it's like Donald Sterling. Like, he had to sell the team. No one's heard from him since, but I'm sure he's just like living life from the $2 billion that he got for the Clippers franchise. Word had trickled out about this a couple weeks ago that ESPN was compiling a report about Robert Sarver, the Phoenix Suns owner. That would be, very bad news for him. It dropped Thursday, I believe. Baxter Holmes of ESPN. I'm sure if you're listening to this podcast, you've already seen the story or the highlights of it, so we're not going to get into everything. But the headline is allegations of racism and misogyny within the Phoenix Suns inside Robert Sarver's 17-year tenure as owner. It includes some pretty bad accusations, if they are true. He uses the N-word pretty frequently. A lot of discrimination against women in the organization, sexual harassment, talking about his wife giving him blowjobs and passing around pictures of her in a bikini. The one anecdote that stood out to me was when he's talking about, LaMarcus Aldridge. They were courting him as a free agent in 2015, and he cited having kids, and like that's why he wanted to be in certain geographic areas. So Sarver allegedly went to some people in the Suns organization and said, like, we need to get strippers impregnated so players feel encouraged to come to Phoenix. It's just real galaxy brain stuff if he actually said it.
No, it's ghoulish. It's it's not just galaxy braining. It's ghoulish, and in the fact that he's also allegedly, we have to say allegedly, created an environment where you can't even go to HR. Yeah, that was one of the things that I also took note of. That apparently several former employees said, "God, no, just don't go to HR with anything."
You're fearing retribution if you do.
Right. And as someone who's been through something similar to that vein, and for legal reasons, I can't tell you where I worked, but this story. That was back in 2019. I worked in a place where there was no way that HR would help you with anything, and it was a very toxic work environment, and it absolutely it took me down for over a year emotionally. So you can never underestimate the power of the power of actually not having help in that way, the negative power in that sense. Like, you can never underestimate the mental impact that it has when you can't go into someone and say, hey, look, I'm dealing with something rough. Can we fix this? When there's no help to be found, you feel alone, you feel isolated. And so I can just imagine all these Suns employees, former Suns employees, who felt so alone in trying to fight this. I mean, not having the help of HR in a major multi-billion-dollar company, that's embarrassing. Absolutely embarrassing.
Yeah, I mean, one of them was quoted as saying, "It breaks you, I'm hard to break, and it broke me." Another one said, "It wrecked my life, I was contemplating suicide." So, yes, this was far-reaching effects based on whatever culture was being propagated at the time. So, you said it, these are accusations, allegations. There isn't hard and fast audio, video proof of any of this yet. That is not to call into question Baxter's reporting, because I guarantee you ESPN Legal had its hands all over this. Yeah. He said he interviewed more than 70 people. I'm sure there's a lot of corroborating stories between them. So I'm inclined to believe more of this than not, because we've heard a lot of this stuff about Bob Sarver behind the scenes before. This is not really news to anyone. I think it's just the scope of it and the specific examples that were news. My big picture question to you, Mort, is this: the NBA is opening an investigation into this in the wake of this report.
Right.
What do you think comes of that investigation, and do you think this report is enough to force him to sell the team?
In regards to the report itself is what triggered the investigation. So I think that's that's the consequence of the article. I think the investigation is going to determine whether or not there is enough there for the NBA to go in and basically say, look, we simply can't have you as an owner. We just can't. And I like you said, I keep going back to ESPN had ESPN legal all over this. Of course, this was a long article. I think I don't know the word amount, but it definitely took me 20 plus minutes to get through.
Yeah.
It was a very long article. And so every single sentence had to be broken down from a legal perspective and double checking, triple checking, fact checking, everything. So I have no reason to believe at this point that ESPN filed a false report. And if all those things end up being true, and hell, Robert Sarver even admitted to some of them. Like
the pantsing the employee.
Right, exactly. Like some of these things, if they are again proven true, I really hate saying that because it sounds like I'm doubting the anonymous sources, which I really don't. I think it's enough. I mean, when you have an owner walking around using the N-word and even making the implication that black players need black coaches.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one thing when you have players want to play for a black coach, like for example, Jeremy Grant. That's different. That's in a different context. Saying that black people or black players need a black coach, that's something else entirely. That is a different message that's being sent there, and it blows my mind still why you would want to get into the NBA as an owner or an executive or whatever if you have those racial ideologies of how things work. It blows my mind. Like, go to the NFL instead. Like, if that's the way you look at it.
Or like the NHL.
NHL. Like, right.
Like the NFL, it's going to have plenty of black people. I mean, the NBA is a majority black.
Right, no, when I say NFL, I just mean the football culture, right? Which is very Don't worry. I know what you mean. I'm just saying, like, that is not basketball specifically. Is not the sport you want to go into.
Right.
It's just, and it just bothers me to no extent that even if the NBA forces Robert Sarver to sell, he's gonna walk away with billions.
Yeah.
Like, he's not gonna come out of this bad. His reputation is gonna be completely broken, but he doesn't care because he has more money than anyone else.
Right.
I am tired of billionaires not having real consequences. I am really fed up with it at this point.
Yeah. It's like Donald Sterling. Like, he had to sell the team. No one's heard from him since, but I'm sure he's just like living life from the $2 billion that he got for the Clippers franchise.
He's chilling. He's probably built up even more housing projects and is messing over his tenants there. But I mean, no, look, the overarching thing here is it could be like, I think what happens if the NBA decides, okay, we can't force Sarver out? What happens then?
Right.
I think that's another interesting question, because do players then want to keep working for him or playing for him? I mean, of course, players will always gravitate towards NBA teams. Like, if an NBA has 15 roster spots, there are definitely going to be 15 players interested, regardless of what happens behind the scenes. But does that mean a Devin Booker or a Chris Paul or a DeAndre Ayton wants to be associated with that type of organization? Mm-hmm. I think it's a fair question. Maybe they just decided, you know what, to hell with this. Let's go elsewhere where we actually have ownership that is humane. Maybe that's part of it. I don't know. I guess we'll find out over the next coming months. But regardless, it must not feel nice to be a Phoenix Suns employee right now.
No. And I mean, that's what I keep coming back to as well. Like, what will the NBA turn up, and will it be enough to force him to sell, like Donald Sterling with the Clippers? This is, the most analogous example of that. The difference, of course, is that there was audio evidence of him saying something that saying something racist. That at least to our knowledge, that isn't the case here yet. Hopefully something turns up and that makes it very easy.
Yes.
But I'm concerned that it won't be enough. It should be. Like, I want to make that very clear. Adam Silver should force Robert Sarver to sell this team. He has no business owning a team in this league. Players shouldn't have to work for him. Team employees shouldn't have to work for him. You should not promote this type of culture. Full stop. But I'm worried that it's still not going to be enough, because I think 22 of 29 owners would need to vote to force him to sell.
Yeah.
I hope this has reached the burden of proof for that. But the overly cynical side of me, as you said, like, it's how many billionaires actually face consequences? Very few. And these guys are all competitors. So you brought it up. Will players want to continue playing for him? Or will a DeAndre Ayton, for instance, who just had contentious negotiations and didn't reach an extension, in the wake of this, will he just say, like, F this team, I'm taking my qualifying offer, I'm getting the hell out of there?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't blame him. Let's put it that way.
I wouldn't either, but
or just sitting out. Even I think it's fair, regardless of what kind of the action the players will take. Like, let's say Devin Booker has a moment where he just go, you know what, screw it. I'm gonna get fined. I'm gonna sit out. I'm gonna do the Ben Simmons thing. I'm just gonna sit out. I refuse to play. That would be a stance. Oh, wow. That would be a stance that would be so huge, and it would have a ripple effect, I think, for the whole team, and I think it would be a major media attention grabber in a good way as well, because those are the things you need to do. That's a protest right there. You're right, Bryan. I mean, the lack of consequences is really what's frustrating in all of this, because how do those people who have contemplated suicide and all that, how do they get their life back? Even if Robert Sarver sells, like, are they gonna get a piece of the pie? I doubt it.
Yeah. And I mean, it shouldn't fall to the players to have to take a stance. But
Agreed.
I'm thinking back to the Sterling situation, and I'm remembering, this happened, I believe, during the playoffs, or at least Adam Silver, issued his lifetime ban during the playoffs. And the Warriors, who were playing the Clippers at the time, had planned a walkout. They were just not going to play. I think it was game 5, or I want to say. This is a report from Marcus Thompson, who was working for the Mercury News at the time. They were going to go through pregame warmups and take part in the national anthem and starting lineups. And then once the ball in the air, they were just going to walk off. Yeah. So, I don't want to say that falls on the Suns, because it shouldn't. This is an Adam Silver and this is an ownership problem. But if the punishment isn't as severe as it should be, I would not be surprised to see the Suns do something similar, or their opponents do something similar, or maybe the NBAPA as a whole decides on a response and says, we're just not going to play, every team playing the Suns, you're not playing. Yeah, that's how it should be. They should not allow this man to continue in his role. I hope Adam Silver and the owners take this seriously enough to recognize the severity of, we need to get this guy out ASAP, no matter what.
Yeah. No, and I agree with you. Of course, it shouldn't fall on the players, but I mean, at the end of the day as well, you have to take into consideration that they are the greatest voices. They have the biggest platforms, and if they utilize it to send this message, it would definitely have a stronger ring to it than it would if the league office issued a statement, for example. Like, this would be something that would be far more attention grabbing, and I think that it would be necessary in a way if the league, of course, doesn't force Sarver to sell. But yeah, you're right. It's just, again, I keep coming back to, how do you go into this? How do you not learn as well from, like, the Sterling situation? How do you not look at people who doesn't share your skin color and go, oh, they're people too? Like, how can you reach that level where you think you're so infallible and you are allowed to apparently say something that is so racially insensitive? I can't wrap my head around it. I really can't.
It's all gross, and we'll wait to see the fallout here. But fingers crossed, the NBA does the right thing.
Yeah.